In the spring of 1231, Pope Gregory IX signed a series of decrees that no one at the time fully grasped would change the soul of Europe for centuries. With a few strokes of the quill, he created the first permanent, centralized, professional judicial machine, whose sole purpose was to hunt, try, and destroy any mind that dared to read Scripture differently from Rome. This was not another episodic persecution. This was the birth of the Papal Inquisition, the moment when the Greco-Roman philosophical church stopped merely teaching its doctrine and began prosecuting it as a capital crime. Before 1231, Rome already claimed a monopoly on meaning. For 800 years it had built its authority on the Greek Septuagint, the imperial canon of the New Testament, the ontological categories of Plato and Aristotle baptized at Nicaea and Chalcedon, and the conviction that there can be only one visible, universal, philosophically coherent church. Dissent had always been condemned. But condemnation had remained, until then, mostly rhetorical, conciliar, occasional. One changed everything. Gregory IX appointed professional inquisitors, almost exclusively Dominicans and Franciscans, trained in the new Aristotelian scholasticism of the universities. He gave them permanent offices, budgets, secret archives, networks of informers. He authorized them to bypass local bishops and secular courts whenever convenient. He declared heresy not only a sin, but a crime against society itself, treason against the universal order. And most crucially, he handed the church the secular arm. If the inquisitor condemned, the state was obliged to burn. This was the precise instant when the mouth that speaks great things grew teeth. Look at the continuity, and you cannot miss it. In 280 BC, the Hebrew scriptures were rewritten in Greek philosophical categories. In 325 AD, emperors decided which books belonged in the Bible. In 538 AD, Justinian made the Bishop of Rome the corrective head of the Western churches. In 1054 AD, the papacy cut itself free from Eastern restraint. And now, in 1231 AD, that same system acquired courts, dungeons, and stakes. The Inquisition is not an accident. It is the inevitable judicial phase of a philosophical universalism that cannot tolerate plurality. When truth is defined as a single, immutable, ontologically perfect system, then any deviation is ontological rebellion. And rebellion against being itself must be eradicated, not debated. The victims were not random. They were the remnants of an older moral-prophetic Christianity that had never fully bowed to the Greco-Roman synthesis, the Paulicians and Bogomils who rejected the Old Testament as the work of an Evie demiurge, the Waldensians, who insisted on preaching in the vernacular and living in apostolic poverty, the Cathars and Albigensians, who challenged the sacramental monopoly, the spiritual Franciscans who took the gospel call to detachment too seriously for papal comfort, the Beguines who dared to experience God without male clerical mediation. Rome did not burn pagans in 1231. Rome burned Christians who read the same Bible, but refused to filter it through Aristotle and the imperial councils. And the method was chillingly modern. Anonymous denunciations. Secret testimony. No right to face accusers. Torture authorized by papal bull in 1252 to extract truth. Property confiscated before trial, creating a self-financing machine. Recidivism punished by death. Relapsed heretics handed over to the secular arm with the hypocritical prayer that no blood be shed, while everyone knew the stake awaited. This was the moment the papacy ceased to be merely a spiritual authority and became a totalitarian interpreter of reality. It now controlled not only what you must believe, but what you were allowed to think, read, discuss, or even doubt in the silence of your conscience. For 3 centuries, the Inquisition spread like a dark web across Europe. Toulouse 1234, Northern Italy 1235, Aragon 1238, France under St. Louis, the Rhine Valley, Bohemia. By 1300, it had permanent tribunals in every major Catholic region. It created the Index of Forbidden Books, the ancestor of every modern censorship list. It forced universities to teach only approved philosophy. It made disagreement itself dangerous. And it worked. It crushed the first waves of biblical reform before they could organize. It delayed the translation of Scripture into living languages for generations. It terrorized consciences into outward conformity. It turned Europe into a continent where a single sentence whispered to the wrong person could mean ruin or death. Yet the very brutality of 1231 planted the seeds of its own future undoing. Every scream from the torture chamber echoed in the collective memory. When the printing press arrived 2 centuries later, those memories exploded. When Luther nailed his theses in 1517, he was not starting something new. He was finishing what the Albigensians, the Waldensians, and the Lollards had begun, only now with the protection of German princes who had learned to fear Rome's courts more than Rome's curses. AD is therefore the year the mask fell completely. The same power that once crowned emperors now burned Christians for owning a gospel in their own tongue. The philosophical church, born in Alexandria and Constantinople, canonized by emperors, centralized in Rome, freed from the East in 1054, now reveals its final form in 1231. A judicial empire that guards its universal truth with iron and fire. And the smoke of those fires still lingers in the European soul, reminding us that whenever any system, religious or secular, claims the exclusive right to define reality and punishes those who see differently, it is walking the same path that began with a papal decree in the year 1231. The horrors of the Inquisition drove multitudes to reject a cruel God. In our next episode, we will enter the year 1462 and witness the prophetic birth of autonomous humanism.